Now, it's been 80 years since Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends first appeared in children's books before their runaway success on screen.
To mark the anniversary, a previously unseen episode of the television series, narrated by Ringo Starr, has been brought back to life. Our reporter Graham Satchell has been taking a look.
Never-before-seen footage of the pilot episode of Thomas the Tank Engine. It was filmed in 1983, but only recently discovered in the archive.
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks.
The unmistakable voice of the original narrator, Ringo Starr.
Phew, remarked Thomas. What a funny smell.
Right from the very beginning, we see Thomas as a slightly cheeky little engine, this time making fun of Gordon, the bigger, stronger tender engine.
Do you know what I think it is? It's ditch water.
Thomas the Tank Engine harked back to a time where politeness was expected, rules had to be followed, and naughtiness normally had consequences. In the pilot episode, Thomas, already having been quite rude, ignores a warning sign with calamitous results.
Stupid old boat, said Thomas. There's no danger, there's no danger. Look out, shouted his driver. Come back. Fire and smoke, said Thomas. I'm sunk.
Sunk indeed. What will happen to him?
Oh dear, he said, I am a silly engine.
It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Thomas and Friends was a hugely popular children's programme. More than 500 episodes were made, airing in 150 different countries.
I'm sending you to work on the new branch line, Thomas. Maybe that'll help you think about being a little less cheeky.
It had a major reboot when Mattel bought the franchise more than a decade ago. New animated episodes were made with new characters, many of them female for the first time.
It's almost like a little enchanted forest. Oh, the kind of place you'd find fairies and elves and magical creatures.
Marion the Railway Steam Shovel was voiced by Oscar winner Olivia Colman.
Oh, hello there. You must be Annie and Clarabelle.
Ryan voiced by another Oscar winner, Eddie Redmayne.
My name is Ryan, and I'll be your engine today.
Down a mine, is he? Ho, 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 laughed Gordon. What a jokey chortle, puffing to the rescue.
Back in the pilot episode, Thomas is about to be rescued by Gordon, the engine he was so rude to at the beginning.
Heave, called the fat controller.
There is a moment of jeopardy, but Thomas is finally rescued and lessons are learned.
I'm sorry I was cheeky, said Thomas. That's all right, Thomas, you made me laugh.
80 years on from the publication of the original books, the release of the pilot episode is a nostalgic reminder of simpler times.
United we stand, together we fall, said Gordon grimly. And buffer to buffer the Allies puffed home.
Graham Satchell, BBC News.
So, here in the studio, Mark Chambers, whose grandfather wrote the original Thomas the Tank Engine books. Ian McHugh is producer of Thomas Adventures on TV. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Mark, for you, all of this is very personal, isn't it? Going right back. Take us to a place in time, your grandfather reading these stories to you.
Yes, indeed. I have memories going back to very early days. I would think probably 5 years old. And him coming to stay with us at the family home in Devon. Can't remember the specific stories he would have read me, but he would bring out one of the volumes of stories that he'd written. And yes, it was a wonderful thing to have those stories read to me by him.
And we're seeing a picture of him now. The stories obviously were already published at that point. They were already in the public
absolutely.
domain.
By the time I was born, he'd completed all 26 books that he wrote initially. And then the TV series and everything that came after that was about a decade in the future. I'm
going to ask the obvious question, but at age 5, you probably can't remember. Was he a good storyteller? I mean, I know he's written books that people have loved for generations.
Yeah, no.
But do you remember his voice? Could he deliver it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Not too many accents, but there was certainly emotion in the voice. And yes, it was a very special experience, even at that age.
Ian, I think you have to... I'm quite interested to hear what you might have thought about when you first saw it, because your grandfather had been reading the stories to you. But you have to be very careful with how you take something like Thomas the Tank Engine, which so many people, like you were saying, you watched earlier and you had the books and everything.
Yeah.
When people's imaginations kind of go a certain way, you have to be very careful with it, don't you?
I think we have to remember where the story started from, and it really started from that love of trains. And I think the nice thing in today, people still love trains. Children still love trains. I go to my local train station and kids get excited, even though it's a modern electric train coming in, you know. I think people's love of trains, and I think whatever we do with the show, you know, because it evolves over the years, we always remember those sort of timeless stories and the good themes and messages behind them, friendship and teamwork, and you know, that's why we're celebrating 80 years of Thomas. It's still going strong to this day.
And there have been some remarkable voices attributed to Thomas
Absolutely.
the Tank Engine. Someone's just messaged in saying, I was a fan of the Thomas the Tank Engine books, grew up listening to Willie Rushton.
Yes.
There's a plus, you know, reading the books, and he's got the full vinyl LPs now as well, with all of those.
Very collectible. I mean, Willie Rushton, Johnny Morris did a lot of reads long before the TV series, and then obviously with the TV series Ringo Starr, you know, you don't get much bigger than Ringo.
Well, do you want to explain, because I don't know, how did that first come about? You know, did someone just have the idea of going, why not Ringo Starr? Is there a story attached?
Well, the story, as I understand it, is Britt Allcroft, who was the lady who got the rights to make the TV series from the late 70s, decided she wanted a narrator rather than the engines having their individual voices, but couldn't decide who that narrator should be. And apparently was in the family home one night, walking past the living room where Parkinson was being broadcast and Ringo was being interviewed, heard the voice, didn't realise who it was who was actually speaking, went in, saw of course it was Ringo, and just that was it. Said that's who I want as the voice of the series.
And clearly, I mean, he wanted to do it because he ended up doing it. So he obviously, maybe he read the stories himself to his own children or whatever. There was clearly an affection there.
All I know is he said that he didn't have the stories read to him as a child, which my grandfather said he had, therefore a neglected childhood.
Okay.
Which sounds very much him. He then certainly went back and read the stories and was very complimentary about them. And clearly was interested enough that he was prepared to be involved, which is a lovely thing, because that's become, in its own way, very much as iconic as the stories, Ringo's narration.
So true, isn't it? Because his voice on that series, I mean, it makes it very different, doesn't it? In the best possible way.
Mm. I think a lot of people still think that Ringo narrates it today. I think it's become such an iconic voice that is attached to Thomas, but he only did the first two series. You know, so obviously after that, Michael Angelis came in, who was sort of classic sort of Liverpudlian actor, who had a very similar tone and voice to Ringo, and did a fantastic job of sort of carrying on that legacy of great storytelling.
Mm. It's amazing how far it's spread across the world in terms of fan base as well. Because I think of it as quintessentially British.
Oh, it is.
But it is known all around the world.
Yeah. Japan, huge, isn't it?
Yes,
huge in Japan.
Huge in Japan. Yes, I mean, at its core, I think you're right. It is very much British, set in a golden age of the sort of 1940s and 50s on this mythical island, and yet there's something there that appeals to children, generations of children, on a global basis, and it's astonishing and wonderful.
We love a story about trains. We also love a story of discovery. And this bit of reel of tape here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This is so there was a discovery made. There was a kind of forgotten episode. We love stories like that.
In 1983, so Britt Allcroft, as we'd mentioned, unfortunately Britt passed away last year, but she had gone to sort of Clearwater Films to create the first Thomas series, and they shot a test pilot to really sort of iron out all the kinks and stuff of how they were going to create the show. That was done. They created the first season. Thomas became sort of the huge show that everyone knows and loves. But the pilot was never seen again. And a couple of years ago, we sort of stumbled across some sort of archive footage and stuff that was in the Mattel archives. And we pulled it out to find out that this was, you know, the film cans of the pilot. We opened it up. I would have loved for it to have been the complete film, ready to go, but it wasn't. It was film trims, there were elastic bands wrapped around, and it was in a poor condition. You know, we had to do a lot of work restoring it. Not only that, this particular can that we've got with us contains some of Ringo Starr's very first voice recording back in 1983 for the pilot. So put that all together with the sound effects we also found. The one thing that was missing was music. So I sort of decided I didn't want to bring in any old composer to just put some music on the pilot. So we actually reached out to Mike O'Donnell, who was one of the original co-composers, you know, the classic theme that everyone knows and loves. And Mike was only too happy to come in and give us a really nice bespoke score, and it really just came together really well. We're very proud.
Well, a lot of people will be very happy that there's more and you've discovered more. So lovely to meet you this morning. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Joy, thank you. It's nice to have a bit of nostalgia.
No, it is. It is. Straight away, I'm kind of going back into the stories. Very magical. Very magical. I was books, though. For me, it was books, not the animated show. No offence.
Oh, no.
Time now to get the news.
All aboard! Oh, sorry about that. Big night. Yes, he's everyone's favourite locomotive, and despite being almost 80 years old, there's barely a speck of rust on him, unlike my good self. Thomas the Tank Engine first chugged into the zeitgeist in the Railway book series published in 1945, can you believe it, before a stop-motion adaptation called Thomas and Friends debuted on TV almost 40 years later. And despite the invention of high-speed rail in animation, there's no signs of our Thomas slowing down. But did you know the original 1983 pilot episode titled Down the Mine went mysteriously missing and never saw the light of day until today, because the various reels of 35mm film have been found in old canisters in the Mattel archives and have now been restored and digitised by experts. So to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the famous tank engine that also features previously unheard narration from none other than the narrator himself, Ringo Starr, of course, this is a real treat for you. Have a butcher's at this.
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled with some trucks. Phew, remarked Thomas. What a funny smell. Can you smell a smell? I can't smell a smell, said Annie. A funny, musty sort of smell, said Thomas. No one noticed it till you did, grunted Gordon. It must be yours. Annie, Clarabelle, do you know what I think it is? It's ditch water.
Quite
I love that.
It is beautiful, isn't it? It's hypnotic.
Takes me back. It's so nostalgic.
I know.
I remember just sitting on the sofa, the bag of crisps, watching Thomas the Tank.
Yeah, I suppose if it started in the early 80s...
Yeah, so I was probably about 8 or 10, 8.
Well, yeah,
When was it, 83, was it?
83, yeah.
It would have been 9.
Yeah.
9. I love that.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's just brilliant, isn't it?
It's a
do you think
wonderful
kids
thing.
today would watch that and go, what on earth? Or do you think they quite get into
think
it?
it's got that timeless appeal.
I think they love
Yeah.
that sort of thing, which is why they're tuning into the whole pilot on the Thomas and Friends YouTube channel, and that drops at 6 o'clock tonight. Now
then, he has been seen in 145 countries around the world, in 45 different languages, and today celebrates his 80th birthday. Who is he? Well, we are talking about the children's book and TV character Thomas the Tank Engine. And to mark the occasion, a previous unseen pilot of the TV series, narrated by none other than Ringo Starr, has been brought back to life. Let's just take a quick look at the episode entitled Down the Mine.
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks. Phew, remarked Thomas. What a funny smell. Can you smell a smell? I can't smell a smell, said Annie. A funny, musty sort of smell, said Thomas. No one noticed it till you did, grunted Gordon. It must be yours.
Happy birthday, Thomas. Let's talk to Ian McHugh, who's former series producer of Thomas and Friends. Thanks so much for being with us, Ian. Tell us more about this previously forgotten episode then. How did it come to light?
So this was a test pilot that was shot back in 1983 by the late Britt Allcroft, who was the sort of the vision behind the Thomas TV show, having acquired the books from the Reverend Audrey. And the test pilot was really to enable the film crew to sort of understand sort of how they would go about doing the further 26 episodes of season 1. So it was a kind of a proof of concept, trying to sort of iron out any kinks, sort of make sure there weren't any teething problems. So
the pilot was shot, stitched together. They were sort of happy with the outcome. They learned some valuable lessons from it. And it was then obviously put to one side because, of course, then what happened is they created season 1 and season 2 and so on. And, of course, over the years, that sort of pilot was sat on a shelf, and probably at one point, who knows, it may have just sort of never been seen again. And years later, I mean, the fans, Thomas and Friends has a huge fandom. The fans have been requesting, pondering, does the pilot exist? And at Mattel, we were able to uncover some film cans in our archives. And inside those film cans were these small rolls of film trims in pretty poor condition. They were sort of warped, and sort of they had elastic bands that had disintegrated, leaving sort of sticky sort of residue on them. So we had to do a lot of sort of work to sort of clean the film, to be able to scan it at 4K. And using the script from the pilot, we were able to assemble as close as we could to what would have been the pilot. And of course, then with the picture, we sort of wanted to add the sound. So we knew we'd come across an effects reel on 35mm mag track. And we came across a can that just said Pilot VO. And of course, the Pilot VO, we had no idea what it was going to be. Was it going to be one of the crew members doing a scratch record just for the pilots? No, it was Ringo Starr.
Yeah, and we just heard a bit. We just heard a bit of Ringo, and he's actually very good, isn't he?
Oh, he's superb. I mean, he's so iconic. He is the voice of Thomas, isn't he? He only did 2 seasons, but you kind of feel like sort of he's never left.
Yeah.
You know, and I think so. So really, with the pilot, having Ringo's voice, the only thing we were missing was music. So we called upon Mike O'Donnell, and Mike O'Donnell had been one of the co-composers who sort of worked on all the original Thomas themes. Again, very iconic theme tune. And really, this pilot just came together so well. A very proud moment for us all. And obviously, I've already seen with the news today, the fans and how they're reacting to this little bit of Thomas history.
And why does Thomas have so many fans? Why has it been such an incredible success story around the world?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a global phenomenon. It's really something that the stories are timeless. You know, obviously we know that there's sort of great life lessons and messaging and teamwork and friendship and communication. But I think deep down is that there's a love of train. And obviously we have a new generation of fans that are watching Thomas, but we still have this old fan base that have grown up with Thomas, and it's part of their life. And obviously a lot of them have gone from watching Thomas and playing with the toy trains to now volunteering and working on real heritage railways, you know. So their sort of journey has been very much guided by their love of Thomas and their love of trains.
Just briefly, I think you are auctioning off, aren't you, some of the original props and the proceeds going to charity. Just tell us a little bit about that. We've just got a few seconds left.
No worries, yes. So the auction is really to give everyone an option, a possibility to own something from Thomas memorabilia. The proceeds are going to the National Autistic Society, which we think is a great charity to be supporting.
Well done, and really fascinating to hear the story of Thomas from its very beginnings. Thank you so much, Ian McHugh, their former series producer of Thomas and Friends.
It's been the soundtrack to people's childhoods for decades. Now, a pilot episode from the first series of Thomas and Friends has been restored for the first time since 1983, complete with superstar narrator Ringo Starr.
Phew, remarked Thomas. What a funny smell. Can you smell a smell?
It's been released to tie in with the 80th anniversary of the Railway series books by Reverend Wilbert Awdry. These reels painstakingly restored after they were stumbled on by series producer Ian McHugh and his team.
40-year-old film, originally shot in 1983. Wasn't in the best condition when we found it, so we had to do a lot of delicate work in cleaning the footage, scanning it 4K, stabilising it, and then re-piecing the film together.
Since first becoming a TV series in 1984, Thomas and his friends have had several reincarnations, from the real-life models to cartoons to even a blockbuster film. And at Europe's only Thomas Land in Staffordshire today, viewers of all its different versions.
I like the train. And I like the track.
Who's this?
Thomas!
Thomas, that's right.
There's Thomas!
I didn't watch Thomas as a kid, but when he was born, instead of watching the new Thomas, he watches the classic Thomas. So he prefers the classic.
As a child, of course, it's a dream now, and yeah.
And you come from where?
From Germany.
Thomas? Что за Thomas?
Thomas and Friends has even been translated into at least 11 different languages. And with this, the first new release of the original since 2021, superfan Neil can't wait to watch.
I think it's insane, in a good way, obviously. It's very exciting, because it's something that has been rumoured around the internet for years and years.
After 8 decades of entertaining audiences across the world, this restored relic, proof that Thomas still has plenty left in the tank. Amelia Beckett, ITV News, Thomas Land.
And an unseen pilot episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, the television series, is to be released for the first time. The recording from 1983 was discovered on film kept in the archives of the production company Mattel. It's being released online to mark the 80th anniversary of the original Thomas books, as Graham Satchell reports.
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks.
The unmistakable voice of the former Beatle Ringo Starr, the original narrator of Thomas the Tank Engine.
But this morning he had made a plan.
The pilot episode was made in 1983, but has only recently been discovered in the archive. It tells the story of Thomas being cheeky to a much grander engine, Gordon, then getting into trouble at a mine, ending up in a ditch. Thomas and Friends hark back to a time where politeness was expected, rules had to be followed, and naughtiness normally had consequences. In the pilot episode, Thomas is rescued by Gordon, the engine he'd been so rude to. Thomas apologises, Gordon is magnanimous, a nostalgic reminder of simpler times.
Graham Satchell reporting.
Charles, thank you. It's 9 minutes past 7.
Time for some memories. Memories of a long time ago, in some cases. Thomas and Friends, of course, Thomas the Tank Engine, and a rediscovered version of the pilot episode was released last night. The first time it's been seen since 1983. The series pilot episode is called Down the Mine, narrated by, of course, Sir Ringo Starr. Appeared online on Friday. It coincided with the 80th anniversary of the Thomas the Tank books. So let's hear a bit.
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks. Phew! Remarked Thomas. What a funny smell. Can you smell a smell? I can't smell a smell, said Annie. A funny, musty sort of smell, said Thomas. No one noticed it till you did, grunted Gordon. It must be yours. Annie, Clarabelle, do you know what I think it is? It's ditch water.
No one else could do it, could they? It had to be. Sir Ringo Starr. Brilliant. Brandon Carty is a producer-director of An Unlikely Fandom, The Impact of Thomas the Tank Engine, and joined us from North Carolina, of all places. Hello there, Brandon. Where are we? Middle of the night?
Yeah, it is nice and early 3 a.m. over here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for staying up or getting up, whatever you've done. This is a sign of your dedication to the cause of Thomas the Tank Engine, is it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, me and my friends, we've been talking about this pilot for the last 24 hours. It's insane.
Yeah. How do you fall in love with and become so immersed in the world of Thomas the Tank Engine? Where did this come from?
It all began sort of when I was a kid. My first memory is watching season 4 of Thomas. There's the shot of like these two engines going over a bridge with a giant moon in the background. And since then, it's kind of captivated me because it's this classic live action animation series that spanned 40 years of television. And it's just been taking up so much of my life.
Well, this is what I'm struggling. I'm not struggling to understand. I mean, but there were programs that I liked as a child. Ivor the Engine, I was very keen on that. But once I got to the age of 7 or 8, I passed on, moved on to other things, and left it behind. Everybody will love programs as a child. What do you think it is about it that you've taken it into adulthood, Brannon?
I think the main thing I take out of it is sort of the characters in the show and sort of how you deal with the day-to-day world. Because it's this fantasy element, every character is unique, but they also feel like someone you might meet out on the street. Gordon's bossy, James is vain. You know, that kind of helps you figure out how to deal with people. And it's also just a nice escape. You know, the world is tough out there. And there's nothing better than coming home after a long day from work and just putting on Thomas, and makes you feel safe.
Is there one of the engines that you particularly associate with? Which sort of personality are you, Brandon?
I'm a big fan. It's a diesel class 40. He's very sly, very vain in his own appearance, but also he's very helpful. He's a sort of a fan favorite, and I really find myself attached to him.
Right. So do you think he reflects your personality, Brandon?
Unfortunately, probably just a little bit.
But it's good. I mean, it's good if you can see yourself in one of the characters in anything. I suppose it helped. And what about? I mean, the pilot has it lived up to what you were hoping for?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fans have been sort of begging for this for however many years. You know, the knowledge about this has been out on the internet. It's just so strange to hear this new Ringo Starr audio from 1983, to see the original Thomas, what he looked like, the original Gordon, which looks very strange and scary. But it's so nice to see, like, this is where it came from before it became this huge hit.
Yeah, and Ringo Starr, which you wouldn't put the two together, would you? But it perfect casting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Britt knew exactly what she was doing. She knew that to get people to care about this, she needed star power, and I don't know what favor she had to pull to get Ringo Starr, but clearly it worked out.
Yeah, you know, he was the drummer in the Beatles as well.
It's funny because I have a lot of friends who are Beatles fans, and they're like, "Oh, you know Ringo because of the Beatles." I'm like, no. I know him from something else.
There's generations. I think I was one of those. I think my father had to say that very line to me, probably when I was young. Thank you so much, Brandon. Brandon Carty, producer-director of An Unlikely Fandom, The Impact of Thomas the Tank Engine.